Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the December 5th Board of Education meeting. If you could all join me in a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. And we will begin this evening with our RIE Recognition of Excellence Awards. Dr. Byrne.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. So in superintendent school, you make a list of all the things you hope to get to do as a superintendent. Searching the buildings in the middle of the night with bomb-sniffing dogs is not on that list generally, but celebrating the accomplishments of students in so many ways is. And for board meetings as a superintendent, you hope to be able to check off having a couple of celebratory board meetings in your career and not meetings where you have crowds of people storming the castle. So we have one of those great celebratory ones tonight in a variety of ways. We're going to celebrate the accomplishments of our amazing girls soccer team, and we'll also be celebrating the work of our teachers and our students around critical thinking. So we're going to begin with some very special recognitions because on that list of things to do for a superintendent, it is win state championships with your teams. This year I got to knock off 2 of those. And tonight is and this will always be special, ladies, my very first time experiencing a state championship in an athletic contest, and it is thanks to you. So I am so thrilled that we're here celebrating. I don't know if you've warmed up yet from that day, but it was freezing, and I see your legs were so red. You looked freezing cold out there. But your parents and us from the staff that were up in the stands cheering you on, I could not be more proud than I was that day at Cortland. So without further ado, we have some special guests here who wish to celebrate you as well. So I'd first like to call up Mayor Josh Cohn, the mayor of RIE.
Thank you, Eric. I fortunately have helpers. I have little gifts for each of you, if we could. Yes, one for sample purposes. So, a city proclamation, and it's got a lot of little whereas clauses in it, but the essence of it is that you've made us very proud. We're in absolute awe of your accomplishment, and we congratulate you and really wish you the best from here on. So we have one of these with each of your names on it, and we'll just call people up one by one. So Charlotte Keenan. Not here?
We're not doing all together?
Okay.
I'll take that. I'll take first things. Help to communicate.
Yes, at the bottom.
Let's go next round. We're searching shortcuts of a sister show. I didn't see that. That's to have that guy.
Lila Keenan, perhaps?
Congratulations. Look at that money.
Meredith Kenny.
Congratulations. You go story. Well, you got China in this.
Allie Cofer.
Congratulations.
Sophia Shoemaker. Tessa Labovitz.
Congratulations. The soda. Missions.
Phoebe Lee.
Congratulations. LCD. Go be in it.
Reese Lejuez.
Like what you hear last. Look.
Maybe up to the
They do it.
Claire Nemsick. Not here.
They teach that's your chat. That's the world right study something.
Parker Calhoun.
Similar.
Bowen Brown.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was
Shira Rand.
Yeah, it's two.
Mary Sack.
Congratulations. Should I?
Sage Ruttenberg.
don't tell me.
Take your time.
Stop. Man,
Congratulations. Yeah.
he says,
Well,
Corinna Chater. Ava Cross.
he did.
congratulations.
Claire Curran.
Congratulations.
Paige Vanek.
Face. Big shield.
Della Goodman.
Speaker.
Influence.
Shin.
Maddie Walsh.
Congratulations.
Sienna Wardle.
Congratulations. Stairs.
Mally White.
Make with
Congratulations. Yeah.
Lucy Wyckoff.
Congratulations.
sweet.
Samantha Yeh.
Congratulations.
That's kind of something. I just can't.
Jay DeSanto.
Congratulations.
I spot. I think.
Isabel Harvey.
Lord with.
Congratulations.
Was you?
So you've all been the picture of politeness, and you've all said thank you to me. And I'd just like to reciprocate with again, on behalf of the city, our thanks to you. You've really made us proud. It's wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We also have Lisa Urban here, who is representing Assemblyman Steve Otis, who could not be with us tonight because he's up in meetings in Albany. Lisa.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. Yes, I can tell you for sure that Assemblyman Otis would much rather be here than up in Albany at these meetings that he's at. But, you know, Steve has always been a big supporter of our youth sports and all the Rye teams. And, you know, years ago when he was mayor of Rye, he would always say the success of our teams is what really brings, you know, the best in our community. And everyone comes to see all the home team games, and it's really, you know, really special because we all know that Rye is just such a special sports team. So to mark this achievement tonight and for you're winning the New York State Girls Varsity Soccer Championship, we've prepared a long, it's a legislative resolution that has a lot of whereas, as the mayor pointed out in yours, that we hope captured a lot of the highlights of this remarkable season that you girls had. And when the Assembly begins its session in its next session in January in Albany, Assemblyman Otis will be introducing this resolution, and a copy of this resolution will go to each of the members of the team, the coaches, the athletic directors, and, you know, as a wonderful keepsake. So again, we want to just, on behalf of New York State, we just are so proud of you. You girls are such gifted athletes, and you're just such a gift to the community, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I know the girls will be celebrating with Senator Shelley Mayer, who will be visiting very soon, next week, I believe, or a couple days after that. And last but not least, before the board recognition, we have our neighbor and county executive, George Latimer.
Thanks very much. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, but I'm also a Rye resident for the last 38 years. I'm the proud father of Megan Latimer Letterman, class of '03, the husband of Robin Phelps Latimer, class of, do I say it, honey? '72, and the son-in-law of Alice Sullivan Phelps, class of '40. And in the class of '40 and in the class of '72 and the class of '03, they didn't have a state girls soccer championship. Your class did. Round of applause. Now, both my friends, the mayor and the assemblyman, have wonderful proclamations for you. I'm going to do something a little different. I'll need Dr. Burns' help in order to execute this. But for those who know me in the community know that I hang out in the community in the beginning and the end of the day, and I spend the rest of the day someplace else. And usually, as a Rye person, I'm at Poppy's in the morning and Kelly's at the evening. You're too young to go to Kelly's. So we're going to get a list of your names, and I'm going to give them to Jerry, who runs Poppy's Cafe. And the next time you go into Poppy's Cafe, if you're on the team, you're going to go to her and say, this is my name, I'm there, I was on this championship team, breakfast is on me. And I'm going to count on your honesty, and we're also going to double check the names. But what you've done is tremendous. We're very proud of you. And just let me also say that what we generally do in this kind of a world is we make bets with other people who are in other offices, like the ones we hold in another part of the state. I just cleaned up on the Broome County executive because the boys won the football championship, and you guys helped me clean out a fellow named Steve Ballone, who's the county executive of Suffolk County, where Shoreham Waiting is, and so I want to thank you for the lovely dinner that he's going to have to buy me and Robin out in Suffolk County. Congratulations.
Big. Second. Very good.
I'm hoping I get on that list for poppies as well. So we are pleased, thank you to our elected officials for being here this evening, but we're so pleased to begin the meeting tonight by honoring a group of extraordinary students. And the RIE Recognition of Excellence Awards were created in 2012 to recognize students who've achieved great things in the arenas of academics, arts, and athletics. And tonight we're honoring 26 RIE High School student athletes who competed and won at the highest level of high school sports. The girls' varsity soccer team had an extraordinary season, ending with a 17-2 record. This earned them a spot in the Section 1 Class AA Girls Championships against reigning New York State champions Albertus Magnus, a team that had not lost a game to a Section 1 team in 2 years and had only conceded 1 goal. The team staged an incredible upset, knocking off Albertus Magnus, a school that actually recruits players to play soccer for them, 2-0. This in and of itself would have been enough to earn the team quite the acclaim, but they weren't done yet. The team then proceeded to the regional semifinal match against Owego Free Academy, winning the game 4-0. They then garnered a 4-1 win against Our Lady of Lourdes to advance to the state Final Four, defeating Lewis Porter Buffalo 3-0 in the semifinal on Saturday, and then setting them up for the decisive 2-0 win over Shoreham Wading River. Thank you to the team, the parents, the families, and the coaches, Rich Savage and Juliana Adesso, for bringing home the first state championship win for girls soccer and for RIE since 2008. You have made us all so incredibly proud. Will you please come forward to accept your award and accept the congratulations of the administrators and Board of Education members when I call your name. Bowen Brown.
Congratulations. And you can Steve over there function.
Thank you so much.
Parker Calhoun.
Let me know what you want.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Mr. Sadi.
Karina Chater. Ava Cross. Claire Curran.
You heard? Wait. Just
In back the picture.
my hands are shaking.
Joy DeSanto.
Congratulations,
Della Goodman.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
Isabel Harvey.
I do.
Susan Melvin.
Charlotte Keenan. Lila Keenan.
Congratulations.
South Bend.
Meredith Kenny.
Mr.
Love Becken.
Congratulations, Pass.
Yeah. You do it this way.
Allie Coford.
Jack. I am.
Congratulations.
Didn't you read the station?
Tessa Leibovitz.
Congratulations.
Phoebe Lee.
Pass. Congratulations.
Reese Lishway.
Congratulations, Rick. I'm sorry.
Claire Nemsick. Shira Rand.
Congratulations.
Sage Ruttenberg.
Congratulations, Sage.
Mary Sack.
Just like both lines, just take them to their teams.
Sophia Shoemaker. Paige Vanek.
Congratulations, Clint.
Thank you.
Maddie Walsh.
Keith, sons.
Sienna Wardle.
Congratulations.
Mally White.
Congratulations, Conway. Faction.
Lucy Wyckoff.
So that's, yeah,
And Samantha Ye. So Coach, if you could maybe join us up here for some photos, that would be great. And moms and dads, if you'd like to get a photo with everyone together, congratulations.
You can walk up and take pictures if you want. Yeah, you.
Yes, they don't.
You can walk right up and take pictures if you want. So, like that.
No, you push those chairs all the way. Oh, yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah, go.
Yep.
Hey, John, you can, don't worry, that's, oh, close the, yeah, yours and the, do you want to assess,
You can close the
yeah, there's two of them. Yeah, and some, so they could eat this, like, seeds of yolk, and check it, so mine is very stuffy. You can about this and about. And looking for the church. No, I'm going to open it,
Should you really get in there?
it's fast, it's that was a cool. There's one that
Yeah, it's just
I mean, it's off my dad, but just really bad. I didn't like doing that. I really, you know, like the film that it's with the function that has great kids out this dream, this start to shoot it. And when I was I refer to it as a young male about this isn't that's here. Here's Dapper, and that's a first talking about the right that he was.
It'd be found.
It's out school, but I'm super happy.
Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful night, and thank you for the patience of our presenters, the both faculty and students. We're going to reconvene in a moment once everyone has cleared the room. So you're welcome to stay for the meeting if you wish.
Microphones went down, so where they make it down. You could live in the right and then split in the Ed? The thing.
Yes, please.
Lots of them. So no, fire, filter. Well, I think all soldiers. Valley. You got us all?
You got it? All right.
Okay. Thanks, appreciate it. This place needs it. We still don't accept it and then crash it. That's it. Wow, teach me. You know, you see the dance that goes. Yeah, right. Yes, I'm his child. I'm his Nick. She's living in a blind train. I need
Get started again. All right. So we will continue on with our meeting with the report of the superintendent, Dr. Byrne.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our December 5th Board of Education meeting. Celebrating student achievement is one of the best things we do here at our board meeting, so it was a pleasure to recognize the girls varsity soccer team for their incredible accomplishments this evening. And soon we will be inviting the varsity football team to do the same, because on this past Sunday, the boys took on and won decisively against the two-time champion Maine Endwell Spartans in the Class B New York State football finals. It was an incredibly exciting experience for the team, their families, the coaches, students, alums, administrators, teachers, and staff, and it was great to see all the Garnet fans there in support, despite the game taking place over 4 hours away up in Syracuse. It was just a great atmosphere and a lot of fun to be there. On November 29th, we co-hosted an exciting speaker event with Rye Country Day School. Jeff Salingo, author of Who Gets In and Why? A Year Inside College Admissions, came to talk to parents about the college admissions process. Jeff is a terrific speaker, and his insights into college admissions is unparalleled. After his presentation, I had a chance to act as co-moderator with Dr. Meredith D. Chabert, the assistant head of Rye Country Day, for a robust Q&A session, and I think it was a great discussion all around. We also agreed that we should do more of these types of events together, as our parents and students have many similar interests and experiences. We are now in December, and the many holiday events, concerts, and celebrations that accompany the season. So please be sure to check individual school calendars on the new Rye City School District website and our PO and PTO newsletters for the latest updates, as things to do sometimes shift. And this concludes my report for this evening.
Right. Yes, I was fortunate to be at the Jeff Salingo event, and it was a really great evening. And I would certainly, for anybody who was unable to make the event or who was able to attend but didn't get a chance to read the book beforehand, it's certainly a great reference and really helpful in so many parts about this whole college admissions process. So I would suggest that maybe a good holiday present. So we will now move on to presentation and discussion number 1, Living the Rye Commitment, the elementary school edition.
Yes, we are very excited. So this year, one of the new presentations that we have developed and brought forth, it's a series called Living the Rye Commitment, and each of our levels will be presenting with administrators, teachers, and students, and staff developers. So we're very excited that our principals, Jim Boylan, Angela Garcia, and Annie Piekarski, along with Dr. Murray, and a host of guests will be presenting tonight and talking all about the good work in living the Rye Commitment in our schools. So thank you all for being here.
Hey, thank you and good evening. So as Dr. Byrne said, we're going to be talking tonight about how we're living the Rye Commitment at the elementary schools, and we really are doing fantastic work, and so we're going to highlight some pieces of that for you tonight. I'm joined by Jim Boylan, our principal of Midland School, Angela Garcia from Osborne, and Annie Piekarski from Milton School. We also have some teachers here tonight. We have Allison Bealey, second grade teacher from Milton, Lisa Lonergan, fourth grade from Osborne, Erin McCardle and Jessica Labella, third grade from Midland, and they have 3 of their students here with them tonight, so welcome to Virginia, Catherine, and Teddy. Thank you for being here. And we also have Kimberly Prasad, who is our elementary instructional coach. So as I said, tonight we're going to be focusing on the ways that we're really thinking about and living the Rye Commitment at the elementary level. And we're going to describe for you how we're working towards offering opportunities for students to think critically, work collaboratively, and solve problems creatively. And you'll also get a chance to hear about how we are offering opportunities for faculty and staff to engage in meaningful learning opportunities, and how we're kind of working towards expanding expanding these practices across the board. So we're going to start off by talking about the professional learning that will be taking place, which the principals will be discussing with you. And then we'll turn to critical thinking tasks that are taking place in the classroom. And then we'll be talking about our makerspace challenges that are taking place in our brand new makerspaces at all 3 elementary schools. Okay, so professional learning.
So a little background. This is not the first year of this initiative. This has been going on for quite some time. So 2 summers ago at our administrative retreat, we began the focus of really unpacking, I think, a lot of the RIE commitment in terms of with the lens of critical thinking, and with the help of Diane Cunningham and Dr. Murray and central administration, we really took a serious, pointed look at critical thinking, and out of that came a series of learning sessions that we utilized in faculty meetings that first year, 2 years ago, really helping to come up with a common definition around critical thinking, looking at the skills and abilities of critical thinking, as well as the processes, routines that people would use, and then looking at and speaking with our teachers about, in these sessions, about the types of critical thinking questions they were already asking their students. So that was the first year, and that really, I think, helped create a baseline for everybody. This current year, and that actually began in our summer retreat this previous summer, we dug a little deeper into gain a deeper understanding of critical thinking. And this was a great time for not only building administration, but staff developers as well. And we focused in on 3 basic elements of critical thinking. And these, we grouped them together this way and allowed teachers to self-select between questioning and discussion, reflection, metacognition, and bias and perspective taking. And so it's been a great 2 sessions so far, with 4 more to go over the course of this year. So we're looking forward to that.
So as Jim mentioned,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
As Jim mentioned, we divided up into 3 different groups based on teachers' preference. The different building level leaders, as well as the elementary supervisor for special education, and the different coaches worked collaboratively to plan professional sessions for the teachers. So myself, Bianca McHale, and Linda Flanagan worked with the teachers who selected to learn further about questioning and discussion. Questioning discussion was explored in year 1. We began learning about 2 different types of questions, convergent questions and divergent questions, with the lens of how we use these questions to deeper the conversations that students have in the classroom, and to further enhance the learning that is going on. So this year, to start our time together, we went back and we revisited the different types of questions, and we started to analyze and redesign lessons. And so we gave the teachers an example first to help them understand exactly the work that we would be doing this year. And so the example we had given them was around the Boston Tea Party. And so we said to them, if you were going to be working with the students and solely asking convergent type questions, those questions would sound like, when did the Boston Tea Party occur? Who was involved? And what was it an important protest against? And so then we gave them the example. The work that we're looking to do in the classrooms with students is change those types of questioning, make them deeper level questions, and ask questions such as, why was the Boston Tea Party an event in history worth studying? And so if you look at the 2 different types of questions, that last question is the question that's going to further deepen the conversations. There's not one right or wrong answer, and you start to have that higher level of thinking where students are justifying their answers based on the facts that they're learning around the Boston Tea Party. And then our second session was around looking at lessons. We asked teachers to bring some of the lessons that they're teaching in their classrooms and to start to look closely at what type of questions are we asking students. And from that, we found that a lot of our questions were convergent type of questions. And so we quickly realized together that we need to start to look closer at our lessons and start to embed more divergent type questions. And so they worked together to redesign lessons, and they were critical partners with each other. Some of the teachers were fortunate enough to have grade level colleagues. Some of them, which was a really nice thing to see, some of them worked across special areas. So we started to see a nice partnership where sometimes those things didn't naturally happen because you don't have these common preps. You're not talking about common curriculum. And so teachers were now being critical partners with each other, sharing the divergent questions that they were thinking about embedding in their lessons. And then we last left them with, we want you to go back now and try this with the students. We want you to try asking these higher level questions. And we encourage them to either do this, reflect with a peer, or take the risk, invite a peer into your classroom and have a peer-to-peer observation and then talk about it. The second half of the year, we will be working with the teachers to now start to say, we've now modeled for the students how to ask these divergent questions. Now we want to start to do that work with children. And so we will, in the second half of the year, be working on creating a tool together that we will then start to use in the classroom so that the students are starting to have the experience of asking these divergent questions, and they themselves are increasing the level of conversations. And so a common place where that could happen in all classrooms is around book clubs. And so when you're reading literature together, how do you ask those deeper questions to further the discussion so that it's not just a simple right or wrong answer?
All right, so another group that teachers were able to self-select into focuses on reflection and metacognition. So Laura Capiello at Osborne, Jim Boylan at Midland, and myself are running this group. So we've had the opportunity to co-plan together, which has been a great collaborative process for us. So we had 3 main goals. Those are the goals that you see up there. So we felt it was really important to start by creating a common language and coming up with a common definition around metacognition and reflection. So what does it look like in our classroom? What does it sound like in our classroom for teachers and for students? So we read a lot of articles, we watched some videos, and we had some really nice conversations about reflection, metacognition, and those practices that already currently exist in our classrooms. After our first session, we started to take a look at some of our current units of study, so what already exists, some of our current lessons that we're teaching, and we looked at them and we thought about where does reflection and reflective practices already lie in these lessons, and where are places that we can enhance the lessons and embed those practices into them. So we're really doing that work right now and taking a look. And we realized, and through the rich conversations we were having, we realized reflection lives in a lot of what we do, in the types of questions that we ask our children, and what are ways that we can further push it. So it is exciting work. We're at the point too where we're going to be shifting to, we want children to be able to reflect on their practices and then set goals for themselves. And so we want to create tools to support those processes for the children. And so that's kind of where we're headed with this work.
And then the third area that teachers had a choice to select what is in the area of bias and perspective. And those sessions were led by are being led by our instructional coaches. And the first goal there was to develop a common understanding of bias and perspective taking, and they spent the first session doing that, and then they moved into learning about how to use knowledge of bias and perspective taking as a lens to better understand a problem or a situation. And really kind of gets to the heart of critical thinking when you're thinking about an issue or trying to solve a problem, and really understanding all the different pieces to it. And then the final part of their learning sessions will focus on examining curriculum, and really looking for opportunities to offer a variety of perspectives and looking at the kinds of resources that we're offering our students as well. And they'll have a chance to make some revisions to that work collaboratively. And so that sort of lays out our learning for just across faculty meetings this year with teachers. And then now something else we're really focusing on are something called critical thinking tasks. And critical thinking tasks were something that we learned what they were. Teachers kind of studied what they were last year, and now we're really putting them into practice. And we see that a lot in mathematics right now at the elementary level. And a text that's really guiding our work is called Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics. It's by Peter Liljedahl. We have a lot of different book studies going on right now, led by Carrie Winderman, our math instructional coach. And I just pulled a quote from that text that speaks to the work really that book is about, which is that good problem-solving tasks require students to get stuck and then to think, to experiment, to try, and to fail, and to apply their knowledge in novel ways in order to get unstuck. So it's really about offering our kids chances for productive struggle, and a process to do that is helpful, where they really do end up feeling successful. So when you see these critical thinking tasks taking place in the classroom, You'll notice that their thinking is displayed on a vertical surface, and the teachers will talk more to you about this. And that's really for the teachers to be able to assess quickly around the room, and also to facilitate a whole class discussion on different solutions. Also another feature of this process is for students to be randomly assigned to groups to solve problems, so you can kind of collaborate with different types of learners all the time. And that students actually, they can only write the ideas of others to promote their own understanding and collaboration. So if you have an idea and you're working in a group of 3, one of your partners, one of your teammates has to write that idea down on the board. So you really have to do listening, and it really becomes true collaboration. So I want to invite Lisa Lonergan up to talk through how she has implemented these thinking tasks in her classroom.
Turn on. Oh, that's so nice. So this is an example. So there are 2 types of thinking tasks that we're using a lot in the classrooms. One is a curricular task that sort of piggybacks on what we're already teaching or jumpstarts a new unit of study, and then the other one would be a non-curricular, which is sort of more a team building or just a general thinking task that students can do. So I'm going to talk to you about one of the curricular ones. This is an example. It's something called, it's called a 3-act. It begins with a video, which I'm not going to show you. You can look, but it's, and the questions around that, it's a video of someone's hand opening a bag of candy and different varieties of candy inside. And the question is, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And students are writing down just general thoughts about it. And then the question is, what fraction of each kind of candy is inside the bag? And there's not enough information from the video. And so the next question is, what information do you need in order to solve this problem? And they come up with, well, we need to know how many types of candies there are. And so then we reveal some so that there are, we can give you 3 pieces of information here, and using those 3 pieces of information, can you now figure out what fraction of the candy is in each bag? And that's when they're going off onto their vertical surfaces on their whiteboards, and they are talking it through and seeing a lot of math, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. And then we talk about the solutions, and some students got the solution of 16 over 56, and other students got the solution over 2 over 7. We had a big conversation about, is one right, the other one incorrect? Are they both correct? Are they both incorrect? And this was the lesson I used in my classroom to jumpstart talking about equivalent fractions. And these sort of thinking tasks are a great way to start a unit because it sort of front loads the kids' thinking. It recalls a lot of their prior knowledge, gets them excited about what we're learning, and it sort of takes away some of the teacher-driven instruction. So kids already have discovered that there are many ways of writing the same fraction. And then here they are. I have in my classroom the flexible furniture. So I don't have vertical white spaces on the walls, but I have those tables that flip. So while they're not standing, you can see they're all crouching around. We flip the whiteboards. The students have the whole routine. I use playing cards to randomly assign kids. So all the aces go here, the jacks go there, and then when it's time to clean up all the 2s and the 10s, clean up everything else back together, the rest of the students are at the meeting area with me, and we debrief the session.
Thank you, Lisa. Allison?
So here is an example of a 2nd grade non-curricular task that I would give my students. We actually did this one last week. So I would present something like Farmer Milton has ducks and pigs at his farm in Rye, New York. When he went out to the field and counted up all of their legs, there were 32 legs in all. So then the task for the students is to figure out how many ducks and how many pigs there could be. My vertical surfaces will be coming through one of the grants that Kerry Winderman did for us, so I don't have mine yet. So you'll see on the next slide, for right now we're just using Post-its around the room. So something I'm really enjoying and that my students are really loving about these tasks is
The first point is that there are multiple ways to solve this problem. It's not just kind of like how we were taught many, many years ago, that there was one right answer and you either got something right or you got it wrong. And as you notice, just from a few of the examples I shared, some kids like making pictures or sketching, some kids are writing equations, some kids are using tally marks. The students who are on grade level are probably adding or skip counting. You'll see some of my students that are above the standard were actually multiplying and dividing to solve this problem. And then what's great as a teacher is automatically there's differentiation amongst the groups. One group worked the entire time and they came up with one way, one possibility of how many pigs and how many ducks there could be. A few groups came up with multiple ways. And then some groups came up with multiple ways, but maybe all their ways weren't correct. So then right off the bat, that gives me different ways and different angles to teach into those specific groups. One group was stuck. If you, I didn't have a picture of that one, but they were counting the pigs somehow by 8s and the ducks were 2. So they weren't understanding when they were going back and checking their work, what they thought was a great solution wasn't working. But again, because all their work is there in front of them, they're able to go back and kind of work with me and show me their thinking and see what they did. Another thing that's wonderful about this is the students are all engaged in these activities and they're not as dependent on me and waiting for me to come over and me to check in with them. They're really engaged with their partner. In the lower grades, we try to partner the kids off into grades of 2. I use little popsicle sticks with their numbers, so same thing. They get random numbers and then you know with whom you're working. For me, this is typically an activity that I would do during win time. Again, this is a non-curricular task, so at this point in 2nd grade, we've already done place value addition and subtraction, so it lends itself so beautifully to all the skills the students are working on. They love the challenge. They love that they know it's something they're really going to have to think about and work through. Students also enjoy the freedom of expression. The kids who like to sketch, and we talk about this is not art class. It's not your most beautiful pig or your most beautiful duck. You know, circles are fine, legs are fine, numbers are fine, but some kids, you know, do enjoy drawing. As you can see, they're beautiful pigs and ducks. Students are motivated to keep going. It's nice how they motivate each other and they really encourage each other. Again, as Lisa mentioned, it's one piece of chart paper and one marker, so you're communicating with each other and you have to say, can I have the marker? I want to try this. Okay, you take the marker back, let's try it your way. Okay, let me check the way we tried. And I love as a teacher the math talk that I'm hearing while they're doing this, talking about groups of equal groups, counting by, looking at the sum, looking at the total. And then the wrap-up activity is when students are explaining their thinking. Okay, well, this is what we did and this is what worked well. This is what we did that we wouldn't do again. This is where we were confusing ourselves. And then that is some of the example of our students' work.
Thank you, Allison. So a different type of challenge that we're also offering students, they take place in the makerspace. And these are more design challenges. And just to kind of remind you that the makerspaces opened last spring with all of the flexible furniture and fully stocked with supplies. The teachers sign up to use this space and they choose the types of design challenges to present to their students. And it really is just, it's another opportunity for kids to think critically and create, tinker, and collaborate. So I'm going to invite Kim Persad up to talk about the design process that they use in the makerspace.
There we go. Okay, great. Yeah, so we're very excited to have our maker spaces on board at each of our elementary schools because it's a safe, creative space, as Dr. Murray was saying, that teachers can sign up for. Inside the space, we have a lot of just like unplugged things. We have sustainable materials, recycled materials, and then we have more of the technology-focused things like robotics, etc. But regardless of what students are doing in the space, they're always engaging in types of tasks that really require them to engage in critical thinking, computational thinking, decomposition. And so the design process is a process that they engage in regardless of the type of challenge that they are working on. where usually we present them with a problem within a specific parameter where they have to think as a designer and think about how they can have empathy for whatever the need is that they're designing for. So regardless of what they're designing, whether it's a chair, for example, or they're designing a prototype of their choice, it has to have some type of functionality. And so we have conversations about what is it like to have empathy when you're designing? What are the types of things that engineers think about when they're designing for different audiences. So in that brainstorming process, they're going through that same process that you kind of heard about in some of the math tasks that we were thinking about, where you're kind of just getting all of your ideas out of your head, putting them on paper, sketching that, and then having discussions with their partnership. So regardless of the types of challenges that they're working on, collaboration is a key part of that. And so sometimes we have conversations like, what happens when you have an amazing idea in your mind and your partner has a completely different way or idea of how they might want to approach it, and how we can kind of productively struggle and collaborate and compromise in that brainstorming process. Then we think about how we can engage in design and be thoughtful about the materials that we're using. So because our maker spaces are shared spaces, because a lot of times we're also designing with recycled materials, we talk about how in the real world, engineers that are designing don't just have endless materials at their disposal. So thinking about really being mindful and intentional with your design before you actually start to build. Then when they get into the process of building, they know that it's an iterative process. So the whole time that I'm building, while even though students have, for example, a design or a blueprint to refer to, they are making changes along their way. They're testing whatever prototype they're designing to make sure that it's going back to that initial need that they're designing for. What was really cool the other day, we were doing a design, a chair design challenge in one of our second grade classes, and one of the students, as she was like testing it in that iterative process, she said out loud, she said, "This is just like the writing process. This is just like how we go and we edit and we revise." And I thought it was awesome that she made that realization on her own without even having them prompt, because this design process, the types of thinking, the computational thinking, the sequential thinking, those are all skills that have immense transfer value in the classroom when they're with their core academic subjects. And then again, in that design process, we always give them an opportunity to share out what they've been able to create and get feedback from each other. And in that feedback, in those protocols that we do, we think about what might have we changed if we had more time or if we had different materials, and really always kind of having in the back of our mind that we can always improve, we could always change with more time or more materials, etc. So that's kind of the thinking that you see regardless of the challenge, whether they have technology in their hands or they're just designing with duct tape and cardboard. It's always that type of thinking that they're engaging in.
Thank you. Erin and Jess?
So while we are very eager to get into the makerspace whenever we can, one of our goals this year is to kind of use the makerspace as a way to enhance some of our science learning. So one of our third grade units is all about forces in motion. So things like balanced and unbalanced forces, pushes and pulls, gravity, friction, things like that. So with the help of Ms. Prasad, we went to the makerspace to do a marble run. So we watched this amazing video to kind of kick off. So he designed a marble run where it was just a series of events, and ultimately there was a pulley and he was able to feed his dog through the domino chains of events. So it was very cool and it inspired the kids. So given a very limited set of supplies, so they were given some rulers, a piece of cardboard, pipe cleaners, magnets, a rubber band, a binder clip, a cardboard tube, popsicle sticks, dominoes, marbles, and a toy car. They were given those supplies up front, and they had to get the marble into the basket. So it was a very open-ended task. So at first they had to brainstorm. They were in groups of 3. They had to brainstorm their idea. They had to try out a prototype. There was some successes immediately, and there were some not successes so immediately. So there was a lot of redesigning of tasks. Which was really fun to see the collaboration and the critical think happening. So we brought some of our fantastic engineers with us tonight. So Catherine and Virginia worked together. So if you guys want to talk about just what you did. Where'd you start? Why'd you do what you did? Go ahead. All right, I'll ask you some questions. How did you come up with your idea?
I don't know. I just
And look at your picture. What did you decide? Look at that beautiful, beautiful design. How did you get there? Why did you get there? Did it work right away?
No, it didn't.
Okay, so what did you change?
I changed the idea of changing the tube, cutting it in half, and I forget.
What was happening? Was your marble falling out of the...
Yeah.
So what did you do with your cardboard?
I cut it and made it like supports to keep it inside of like onto the chair and like to make sure it stays and then yeah.
After you got it out of
So every time that it failed, we just watched what it did fail and then we tried to change.
So you tried to focus on the part where the marble was falling out and you tried to make tweaks to your design process. So did you find success in the end?
Yeah. Pretty much.
But it was so fun when it ended up going into the basket. The two of them were like, so it was so fun to see, and we got that on video. Teddy, you want to talk about yours?
Yes. Well, you see, I had some problems while I was designing this marble run. My first problem was friction. My original idea was to have a ramp that would go down into the basket. But I would have two ramps, one with a ruler. The ruler didn't have enough momentum. That was going to be my original start. So we put the ruler flat on the ground and instead we pushed it. We pushed the car that knocked into the dials, that knocked into a marble, that slid down the ramp into the basket. But it didn't slide into the basket. It slid on the floor. So we had to use pencils, which technically wasn't material, but we made it work.
So these are some of our other student solutions. You can see on the right picture that some students improvised and started using furniture too to support them. They were using the cords from the blinds to be part of their design. It's always amazing to see all the different ideas that they come up with and how they revise their ideas as they go. We've also used the Makerspace this year. The first time we went in was an introductory task where they were given a maker's challenge and they were just given a set of materials similar to those and they were just asked to design a prototype of anything that would serve a purpose, and they all have a bunch of different ideas from a shed to a rocket ship. And then we used the Makerspace just last week to kind of go beyond curriculum, and we talked about circuitry, and they used Makey Makeys, where they designed video game controls using cardboard, foil, and paper clips, and then they were able to use their video game controls made of those materials plugged into their Chromebooks for Scratch games, which was awesome, and they loved it. So our students can't wait to get back into the Makerspace.
Great, thank you. Okay, so there are just a few areas that we're focusing on right now, and hopefully you got a good picture of what that learning looks like in all of our classrooms. But if there are any questions, we're happy to discuss.
Great.
I mean, that was super cool. So to the students, thank you for staying out late and staying up to help us see and understand all the wonderful dynamic things that you're learning in the classroom. It sounds like a wonderful place to be, and I'm really happy you get to be there. So thank you, parents, for bringing them. I think it was great to see. I don't have any questions. I think I just had so many moments listening to the presentations and then listening to the feedback the opportunities that exist for the shared learnings that are happening. And hearing some of the things they're talking about that the third graders are doing as it related to the space, in the makerspace, right? And solving and being purposeful and solving for problems is the exact stuff my daughter's doing in 7th grade engineering. And it's that idea of that spiral and that support that she's you figure, you get what's the word I'm looking for? Exposed, thank you. You get exposed to it in 3rd grade, and then you build on it and as you go, and that just further not only ingrains the concepts and ideas, but it just strengthens also your own willingness to try things, to be risk-taking in your learning because you've had successes before. And so the idea that those are the opportunities that we're building into the curriculum for our kids is really exciting stuff.
Yeah, so I don't actually have any questions either, but I think what, well, first, I guess my one question is I'm really excited to see where this goes next. And I think one of the areas that struck me in the discussion was about the curricular and non-curricular tasks and how those, just even the description when the students got up to talk about what it is that they were trying to do, and the idea that like I could hear the voices of my own children when they were younger, like, I want to do it this way, no, I want to do it this way, and then the idea of them needing to come together to compromise and collaborate and figure out how each idea was a valid idea, but let's figure out which portions work for which and how we can bring it together. Those kinds of skills are so important, and obviously content is important too, but building that kind of ability and tolerance and I think somebody used the word for the Makerspace projects, including empathy, which I thought it struck me that the word empathy as part of that. Just all of those interpersonal kinds of opportunities to build those skills and to have kids figure out how to, not just break off and want to do it by themselves, right. and they can build something, amazing together. Yep. So those were the pieces that just really struck me as, just unique to this kind of deeper dive into this way of teaching and learning.
I think our elected officials in Washington, D.C. could use some work in these areas,
Yes.
Particularly around collaboration.
And I really loved the editing comment that the student made. It was like, oh, this is just like how we edit. Yeah. It's like, yes, exactly. And so the idea that this is now become an inherent part about how our kids think about work and think about school, that it isn't a finite process, that it isn't, there's one way to solve the problem, there's only one way to get the right answer. There's multiple. Draw your pig as great as you want, add, multiply, divide, and that we do this type of critical thinking and revision and revisiting our work in the math tasks, and we ask these questions in the book clubs, and the opportunities that exist across the curriculum for all of the students as you're challenging your students, trying to help bring students. I think it's just really an exciting way to think about the educational experience for our students, and to see all of the professional learning that our teachers and our administrators are going through. Ms. Bealey said it when she said it certainly isn't how we learned. This isn't how many of our teachers learned how to teach. So it requires so much work from so many people to provide this opportunity to our students, but it is so significantly beneficial for how they have to work in this world now that we are really fortunate to have administrators who see the vision, and we are extremely fortunate to have teachers who are willing to put in the hard work to provide those opportunities for our kids, and I just can't thank all of you enough. This was really amazing. And I will say, I'm really excited to see what the middle school and high school edition have. I just will say, elementary brought it, so middle and high school, let's go.
Well, and just I think they need to know what's coming, because these kids are going to know all this stuff when they get to middle school and high school. It's going to be a totally different kind of student at that point.
I had one question. First of all, thank you so much. I think critical thinking is such a generic term, so it's really helpful with these concrete examples so we can see the work that's going on in the classrooms. Just one question about, are you doing this now, or do you have a plan to make sure that all teachers are trying to do this equally? I would assume that there's some teachers that might gravitate towards this a little bit more, whether it's using the makerspace or, in their classroom. So how are you planning to make sure that, all the teachers are using these tools?
I think that comes down to offering different types of learning opportunities. Some are for all, and some are more kind of like opt-in. So the faculty learning sessions that the principals were discussing, right? That's exposure that all teachers are getting to those practices, and then we have different in-service courses or workshops or book clubs that teachers kind of self-select in to do additional work, as you heard Allison and Lisa discussing their work with the Building Thinking Classrooms text. And I mean, teachers have really taken to that. So it's about like finding opportunities where, and high quality learning opportunities for teachers that they really will gravitate towards. Which isn't always easy. We kind of, as a PD team, we kind of play around with different models to see what's going to hold, and different things hold for different people. So I think it's just offering them just various types of learning.
I just think the faculty sessions so far have also provided people, because you've got some people I think who have that expertise, who are willing to share it out in these sessions, and you see it. Similar to, I think, the thinking task going on with the students in like the makerspace, how there's constant dialogue. In the faculty sessions, you see that with staff who I think are a lot more like in-depth knowledgeable about it, sharing what they know with other staff members.
I think some of you did some really interesting things around critical thinking at your faculty meetings yesterday, beyond the PD plan. I was seeing photos coming in.
I think also one of the things that naturally happens at the elementary level is they teach everything, and so there's a lot for them to do. And what happens with them is they come together and they start to share, and so different team members become experts in different areas, and naturally that excitement around it is shared amongst the colleagues on the grade level. And so while teachers may opt into certain PD sessions, naturally it starts to carry into the grade levels across different teachers at the elementary level. So it may feel like a lot at first, and then they see, oh, my colleague's doing that. Wow, there's a lot of excitement coming from their room. Tell me more about that. And then they start to share.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, we will continue on with presentation and discussion number 1 with an athletics update. Dr. Byrne.
Okay, so as become part of a regular routine, Susan Reed DeLay comes to us at the close of each athletic season and gives us a little bit of update on sort of the state of things and how things are going in the world of athletics. So, Susan, welcome. Thanks for being here tonight. And take it away.
You're so good. Hi, everybody. I was laughing as I went down to watch some practices for the winter, and I said, my foot is now out of fall and fully in winter, and now I have to get acclimated with what my schedule looks like for winter. So it's been exciting, of course. So this update, as always, is nice to bring to you, even without state championships. So the RIE commitment, and we continue to think about different components within the commitment. And it's interesting tonight, as I was watching my colleagues present with this, and the first thing that comes to mind is our first slide here. So in reflection, there was a felt need to look at interscholastic athletics as a commitment. We've started to see over my 4 years at RIE, some of our higher level, our varsity level programs where student athletes are looking at joining athletic teams, which we know obviously is a privilege and it takes a great amount of commitment, and we understand that, that they need to sometimes make decisions that when it comes to commitment to their athletic program, to their teammates, what that looks like. So we're starting to see students sometimes participate maybe in other activities outside sports. Middle school athletics is obviously a different scenario because kids are learning the system, if you will. So as this started to occur, I started to see in different sports, I reached out to Dr. Byrne and Dr. Alm to have some good discussion with this. And when we started to look at this concept and things that we were seeing, I did an assessment using Section 1 schools to get some feedback surrounding commitment to high school level sports. Obviously, it wasn't 100% surveyed. I actually reached out to specific districts as well to get some information and look at philosophies and what their protocols were. And once that happened and I was able to gather that, I was able to speak with Dr. Byrne and Dr. Alm to come up with a scenario or a protocol, if you will, that I thought would work for our students at Rye and support our coaches and our teammates, or teamers rather. So the protocol that we looked at was just basically looking at following our code of conduct, if you will, related to our policy in school attendance. And within that, it's just a brief paragraph about commitment, obviously, that we reflect here that if there ever is a conflict, the athlete must honor the sports commitment as a first priority, and that if it's unavoidable, that the student athlete must inform the team coach, and the following guidelines are related to an athlete's absence from team activities. So we put this protocol in place to support not just our coaches, but our student athletes. Because think about if you're a student athlete that shows up day one, is there every day, committed to a team, and if other student athletes are allowed to, let's say, come and go, however they please, then what is that saying about commitment and team culture? So we put this in place, again, as a protocol, as a guidance for our coaches to use a tiered system, if you will. This was very consistent with my colleagues in other districts. A lot of the language, in fact, in their protocols was almost the same. You could see trends with different districts as well. So it gets a little bit more into that, and it lists excused and unexcused absences, just as a guideline, if you will. If something pops up, we often use logic, of course, and Suzanne, obviously Short, our high school principal, we collaborate on this if something pops up. But the overall arching piece of this was just to be upfront and consistent with our families and our students.
And Susan, this is across all sports?
Yes,
because
yes.
we had also, you
Yep.
had also discovered that there were different practices at different sports
Correct.
based on coaches, and we really,
Just
as
thought
the board knows, we've done a lot of
Yeah.
work to try and be consistent across all of our practices and policies within athletics.
Exactly. And that's where we kind of went down that pathway and realized that, hey, this has to be something that's across the board for all sports as well.
And where is that presented to students when they join the team?
So this is new. So we had our first winter coaches meeting before the winter coaches meeting occurred. And from there, our coaches rolled it out because, again, it's not a policy, it's a protocol that's in place. So when we hit spring coaches will have an idea in fall, and then it will become, hopefully, bless you, a protocol that's well known and shared with families. So it was something that we had a felt need to start rather than wait through the school year to address.
So Susan, can I just ask
Yeah.
a quick question? I saw the, having just worked on our attendance policy.
Yes.
I noticed here I know you say the excused absences this includes but are not limited to. I don't know if it would be, it occurred to me that perhaps it's helpful to have people know that there is a fuller list.
Sure.
That exists within a policy, only because I think in reading this, if it's given to students, they may say, well, these are only, they might read it
Right.
as, this is it.
Sure.
And
No,
I think
absolutely.
there's probably a few others on there, especially for high school sports, where you're getting into your later junior and senior year, there's probably a few other things that will pop up that are part of the excused absence list.
Sure.
So just a suggestion.
No, that's helpful because we want to be in line in uniform. So
Right.
absolutely. And actually, when we were doing this, the policy I think had just updated.
Yeah.
In November, was it November's
Well,
board
we
meeting?
just, it's going to take effect in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be continuing to look at that as we put any language in here if it should ever change. So again, while it's a protocol, I want it to be in line. So that's helpful, Jen.
Yeah, just
very helpful.
just so they have a place to
Yeah.
go to see what the full list is.
Yeah.
If you don't want to list it all in here.
Right. Thank you. So the fall itself was very interesting, and I know many people in this room got to experience the interesting pieces of fall and the challenges specifically related to transportation. I cannot say enough about our families, the resiliency and the perseverance of our kids through this fall. I often pinch myself because I know if I wasn't here, it wouldn't happen. Like this, there were moments where I reflected and thought, well, we may not have made playoffs because we wouldn't have been able to attend games because we didn't have busing, because of scenarios that just popped up regarding lack of drivers due to, random things. It was one point illness within the company. And I will say our company that we contract with has done as much as they can. I mean, they've sent coach buses for events when they ran out of regular buses, obviously charging us a regular bus fee. They have chipped in. The struggle was when we would find out on a Monday, for example, about Monday, and we could forecast a little bit ahead, but it then became prepare for the worst, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But I really I feel blessed that we're in a community that people pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get it done. And our kids and our parents and our families all were amazing with this. To combat that a little bit into the winter, while we had spoke to our fall coaches about the issues that could take place, it kind of snuck up on us. So for the fall, my wonderful administrative assistants working with our coaches to develop electronic format, if you will, a form so that we can keep track of everything in advance should something pop up. So that waiver with everything in there, because in the beginning we were getting our waivers signed with anybody on the team. And clearly it has to be first, last name, and we were spending time sorting, so we were jumping ahead of that. Our lack of officials, this is a statewide challenge. At all my state meetings, we continue to discuss how can we make this better. We've talked about school-based officials. New York State Public High School is trying to continuously recruit. At the Dome this weekend, I was walking by to the concession after our game before I was leaving, and I had a man grab me and say, "How about you become an official?" And I thought, I can't add one more thing on my plate. But it was kind of comical. They were there recruiting football officials at the Dome because we are in need. We just had a Section 1 officers meeting, and one of the pieces was how do we schedule fall sports next year, specifically our soccer programs that seem to get the least amount of officials at the lower levels. Are we going to look to double book them, meaning take a JV official and play varsity after? So we're trying to get creative, but the pool of the number of officials and the lack thereof is challenging. But despite this, obviously we had a wonderful celebration tonight. Between the thunder, the heat index, a flood, everyone just chipped together, and it just felt like while it was a tough fall season, it was worth it. So we were really appreciative of this season. And celebrating postseason, we had 3 team sectional finalists. We had 2 team sectional champions, 2 team regional champs, semifinals, and obviously 2 team state champions. We had 2 relay teams make it to the state finals, placing 13th and 15th respectively, and an individual swimmer make it to the state finals with placing 26th. Our scholar athlete is TBD. It's due December 4th. Donna again, spends, I think, almost 3 hours on this project because it's obviously formulating our GPAs once we get that out to send to the state. And fingers crossed, we have a 100% rate in the past, so we're hopeful for another 100% opportunity, but I will share that once that comes out, as I always do. But overall, looking at, besides what's here, the population of our participation is the next slide. And again, we'll be looking at this when we do our budget rollout later in the year, but this was just a snapshot for Rye High School, our current population and our number of students participating, and Rye Middle School as well, with our current number of students for 7th and 8th graders and our participation numbers. One thing that I didn't put on here, I know that I continuously try to update the board on our athletic placement process because it's always something we reflect on. This fall, we had a total number of 4 student athletes that participated, 3 on individual teams and 1 on a team sport. The winter just finished tryouts, I do know, and I believe we're at 2 student athletes from the middle school that are participating in a high school sport. All of those scenarios, there were no cuts to any programs. So I will continuously update that because it's something that we want to reflect on, and if we need to make changes, we should do so. The other, sorry?
Are they in varsity, JV, or mix, or what?
Both. So our individual teams, or individual sports traditionally tend to be varsity only. So for example, a swim program where there's no modified or JV. So that's how I kind of categorize them. Another interesting piece that has come our way, and I thought I'd just be nice to share, is our in-district and out-of-district opt-out. I think we have a really nice handle on it right now for especially the out-of-district, which we fine-tuned. Most of our students that are in opt-out are definitely, first of all, following the guidelines, but we have a lot of our crew athletes traditionally. We have students that participate in out-of-season sport teams, many dancers and artists within dance, but that's something that's been great. The students return all together, and we refine the application process so our out-of-district opt-out students don't have to keep doing it every semester. So there's just a little checkbox that says that they've done it in the past, and we re-up it. The kids still meet with their teachers and have to complete projects based on that so that there's still that connection and collaboration should we need that. But I feel, I haven't received any negative feedback on it, and I feel like we have a nice grasp on it and ideally philosophically what we wanted. So I think that was my last slide.
Yeah, Susan, one question, follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
So for the students that are doing an activity outside of the school sports, how many are full year opt-outs?
I would say traditionally it's all of our crew student athletes traditionally. Other than that, it's not, because it's a mix. So if a student athlete participates, say, in 2 out of 3 seasons of in-district, sometimes they'll find that 3rd season something, either an activity. I've had students do dance, and I've had students do an outside team sport.
Okay.
So just a question, the numbers are on the board right now. Those represent students who did a Rye School athletic, or students who did that and the...
No, this is just this is for participation in interscholastic sports, 9 through 12.
At our schools. So
Yes.
there's presumably some students who also didn't necessarily do a Rye sport, but were doing something else, like a Rye school sport, but we're doing another sport, the way you were just talking about in terms of the...
Well, we're talking about 2 different things. So this
Yeah,
is
I'm
participation in our teams, and Susan's talking about the opt-out from physical education.
Sorry, I should have used physical
So for
education.
physical education classes, if you participate in a varsity sport or an approved program outside of school, you don't have to go to phys ed every,
Right.
their
That's
schedule.
what I mean. So that's what I'm really asking. Like, the number for that phys ed number would be a larger number than these. Because
Yeah, it's separate.
I know
There's
it's
some,
not necessarily what you guys
that-
imagine.
not all of these kids opt out of phys
Right,
ed, though.
because that's 9 through
okay.
12
I
and
thought so
only
for-
juniors and
The way you've
seniors.
been talking about it.
It's not an automatic thing. They
I
have
thought
to
that all
apply.
varsity athletes were just
So
like,
we have
no.
kids that play on teams, but also still participate in phys ed because they like it.
That I
Right.
didn't know.
We do have that, actually quite a bit of number of kids that choose to stay in physical education, but also remember opt-out is only for juniors and seniors. So that number that reflects 397 is 9 through 12 traditionally, because it's junior varsity and varsity.
And so I think the only other thing that I remember having in the discussion about the opt-out opportunity for students who are in an activity that could be year long, because obviously our sports are seasonal.
Right.
Unless a kid participates in a fall, winter, and spring sport.
Right.
Where they would be opting out, I guess, the whole year, potentially. I think we had discussions around some of the different approaches we were taking with physical education that weren't only being in the gym and doing that kind of activity. And so I guess just how do we see that being captured for those students? Any lessons that would be sort of
So they're not all
specifically
year.
physical activity.
Sure, they're not. So they're not all year. They have to come back, and it's usually dependent on the sport and the opt out. So let's talk about in district. Tennis usually is our first sport that completes. As soon as they're done, they have to return. So they're in until November. Rosters were made around just before Thanksgiving, so they're in physical education until then. So if you took the football team that just finished, obviously they would be in opt-out. However, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the physical education teachers remind me to send out an email to the students that they must return to the physical education class. There's a transition time there, and so teachers, if they so choose, can take that time to utilize any specific education components they may want to use. Whether it be, we started to do work within critical thinking and project adventure, if it's hands-only CPR, which is a requirement, those types of things that they could weave into their curriculum during that time. So even an out-of-district opt-out student, like a crew athlete who's 3 seasons long, would return. There's always that time of return because we felt it value that connection happen if we so choose to up our curriculum in those areas during that time.
But perhaps for when you come back at the end of the winter season,
Yeah.
you can do a separate report on the opt-out
Yeah,
numbers,
sure.
For each of the seasons.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and the only reason it popped out to me was because you talked about, which I think is great, that you've formulated the form so that people can check the box and say, yes,
Right.
I'm participating in for this next, section of the year.
Yep.
So I guess just a better understanding
Sure.
of how they fit back in and then opt back out. So that those students are still able to get.
Yep, and I can share that data specifically to your point, Dr. Brin, because it will be, you could see exactly how many students that captures, what does that look like, and, I can use some specific concrete examples when I speak to our physical education teachers.
Fantastic, thank you.
Of course.
And just remind me, when students do opt out, they're doing what instead?
So, so let's use crew because that's traditionally our out-of-district opt-out group. They are participating with a organized group. So obviously Row America is that. They have a supervisor, if you will, their coach, who has to help complete an initial piece. They have to send a resume and we have everything on file. And then they are looking at not just logging what they're doing, but there is an experience that their physical education teachers are working on with them. They have to show, in a sense, what they're doing. So while I don't have direct say in that, their teachers are working with them on that final project, so to speak, or what they're working with.
But I guess I meant so it's fourth period and that's when their PE would be and they've opted out.
Oh,
What
okay.
are they doing? Are they
So
wandering the
hopefully
halls, sitting in the
studying and
library,
working. So the reason why I've seen opt out from various reasons in various districts around this area, and I know for a fact that our students, if you recall the students that came to speak to us, one of the number one reasons that they looked at of their commitment outside of school was their academic time. And so obviously it's our hope, and speaking to our students that are opting out, they're utilizing their time to, whether it's study, collaborate with another student in a class, meet with a teacher, catch up on things that they necessarily may not have time for.
But I mean, are they have to stay on campus, or their theory they could leave, or
Juniors and seniors can leave.
If they're a junior and senior,
Exactly.
and they have permission from their
Right.
parents, they can leave campus.
Right.
Sorry, younger kids.
No, it's okay.
No, it's okay. It's a
all
good
a mystery to me
question.
still.
And it's
I've had many of them. It's a free period. They can do whatever they want.
yeah.
I do find when I chat with my kids, there's a fair amount of just getting homework done. And
Yeah.
just to get the time back.
And because if you track, and that's why we fine-tuned what the options were, because if you, like, when I'm signing an opt-out for a crew student athlete, I know what's going on. So, you know, there's value, and I can understand what that's coming from. I think we cleaned it up well. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just took a quick look at the protocol itself.
Yeah.
And it's how it's written. I know most of the time these protocols and the way we write these things is to manage the extreme cases.
Sure.
And you leave discretion in the coach and you. The way it's written, it really shows up, and that's kind of stated specifically in the second occurrence. I'd recommend moving that language up front and on top, so it's clear that there is discretion around this.
Sure.
It would just read much more smoothly.
Sure.
Than having it in that second absence paragraph.
Thank you for the feedback. Any other thoughts? On to winter. Thank you for your support with everything and the communication and everything that goes along with this. It feels like sometimes like we're planning a wedding constantly and things keep going wrong. So, but there's always the positive. So again, thanks to everyone here for your support. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all your work, Susan. All right. Now we will move on to the hearing of the public on non-agenda items. This evening, we have no public. We had public, but they've all left us. So I will save us all from having to hear my spiel about hearing of the public on non-agenda items, and we'll just move on to the consent agenda. So can I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Sean Klopfer, seconded by Jen Boyle, beating out Chris Repetto. Let's take a look at tonight's consent agenda. Consent agenda general. Consent agenda fiscal. Sorry, I did, Dr. Murray, if you wouldn't mind giving just a little bit of color on what the Brain Box initiative is that's being funded by the RYE Fund for Education, what Brain Box is? Yes, no?
First grade.
We forgot.
At Midland?
Yeah, it's the grant that is on here. There's STEAM-centered activities.
Okay.
Yeah, there's STEAM-centered activities for the first grade classes at Midland School.
Okay, STEAM, great. And then just the decodable text at Milton?
So part of our phonics work is to increase the number of decodable texts that we have at all of the schools. Milton was showing a specific need for it. And so we just increased the amount of money and put in a grant for that.
Great, wonderful. Consent agenda professional. Consent agenda classified. Consent agenda pupil personnel services and special education. Okay, seeing no questions, let's have a vote to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? That would be 6-0, 1 absent. So on tonight's consent agenda, we did approve 2 donations from the RYE Fund for Education, one in the amount for $3,018.86 for the STEM Brain Box initiative, as well as the RYE Fund donating $10,500 for K-12 decodable text at Milton. So we thank the RYE Fund for Education and all of our families who support the RYE Fund for Education, making these opportunities available for our students and our staff. So we will now move on to presentation and discussion number 2. Mrs. Boyle, policy time. Take it away.
Okay, so this is a second reading for these 4 policies. We reviewed them in our last meeting. There was one small change made to policy 2210, annual reorganization meeting, after discussion to make it clear that the reorg meeting will be the location will be noticed. Originally, it talked about it being held in a school building, which sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So we wanted to be more clear about that. So that language has been updated in that policy. The other three policies have remained the same. So we have 4821, which is school ceremonies and observances, with an update to make sure things are very clear about scriptures and religious materials within the schools. And then we have online and distance remote learning, which had an addition based on changes to the commissioner's regulations for remote instruction during emergency school closures.
Which we won't have anymore.
And then we had a brand new policy, which was school safety and educational climate reporting. There was one additional policy that was on the agenda last week, which was 9101. That was employee religious expression. We had brought this forward. It's not a required policy, but we had brought it forward. And there was a good question that was asked about a particular line or paragraph, actually, within the policy. And so we went back to kind of get some clarification on that, see how we could make it more specific and more understood. And after discussion with our with the policy committee as well as our lawyers, because this is something that is already covered within law, we felt that it was recommended, and the policy committee came to the decision that it was better to let the law be the law and be the source for any anything around employee religious expression, and to not move the policy forward. So we have removed that from the second reading. So if there's any other comments or questions, I didn't receive any from the last meeting specifically to any of these others. No? Okay. So we can move those forward to the 19th for adoption.
Great. Look forward to that. Okay. We now have communications to and from the board and district committee updates. I assume, just heard about policy meeting.
Well, yes, and others. So there'll be more policies for the 19th.
All right, more to come.
There's a lot of new policies being recommended lately.
All right, excellent.
I mean, the policy committee is working hard, Jen.
Listen, it's the hardest working, most fun committee of the board. I say it all the time, even though I'm not on it anymore. Still holds true. But I did get to go to the curriculum council meeting. Thank you, Kelsey and Sean and Callie, for not being able to go, because I got to be called up. So it was very exciting to attend. And at the curriculum council meeting, there was a discussion related to the math program and the studies, looking at the algebra sequence in hopes to better align with the New York State math sequence. And so further discussions and conversations will continue to take place before any changes are made. And I'm sure there'll be a conversation at another time with some more detail around it. So, as always, great things and great work is happening with our curriculum and instruction, so we thank you for that. Anybody else have communications to and from the board? No? All right. Well, seeing none, I will remind everybody that our next meeting, not only will we have lots of policies to talk about, but we will have Living the Rye Commitment, the Rye Middle School edition. So if it's anything like tonight's, I'm sure it's going to be a great meeting, and we hope you all have an opportunity to join us. Can I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Chris Geppetto, seconded by Tom Stein. All those in favor? 6-0, 1 absence. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.